What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to episode 3 of the Weekend Media Podcast. I am your host, Jordan Wheeler, and back with me again is my co-host, Brian Garcia Tirado. What is up, Brian?
Bro, you don't live in the dream. I thought you were going to hit him with AKA flicks.
You know what? I like to scatter it out through because here's the thing. I don't want you to know that it's coming. Maybe I'll change up your nickname from time to time, YouTube Money. You don't know how it's going to go. You don't know how it's going to go, and that's why I keep them guessing. So in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the dreaded analysis paralysis and over-analyzing everything before you even get started. You got to get started at some point in time in the game. Why overthink it? You know what, Brian, as we jump straight into this, I got to say we've all fallen victim to this at some point in time, whether it's with a car build, whether it's with social media or just life in general. I know growing up, my grandpa was one of those guys who used to make a decision, but then afterwards, he would sit there and he'd break it apart like, well, maybe I should have paid this for this, or maybe I should have made this decision, or maybe I should have waited longer. And that will kill anything and everything.
Yeah, I've been there. In fact, I'm actually there right now. I'm glad you brought that up. It's actually with my website, launching my merchandise. I'm like, what am I waiting for? Just launch it and, just make an Instagram story and post it. Yeah, it's bad, but the way you figure it out is just by doing it. I mean, you've been in the same situation where you're like, I don't really know how to do this, but let me just get started and the path appears on the way.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I am a person who loves spreadsheets. I turn everything at my job into a spreadsheet. For my YouTube builds, I turn everything into a spreadsheet. So before I even got started with YouTube or my first build that was going to be done for YouTube, I had a spreadsheet down of everything that I needed for it, all the prices, everything. I had all my cameras, lenses, this and that. And I mean, I'm sitting here looking at this thing. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be spending $33,000 over the next few months to be able to get on YouTube. And I realized, you're a freaking idiot, man. You start watching some of the top earners on YouTube, especially in our space, it's a camera in their hand. You know what? It's just, a lot of times it's a hand-me-down or the easiest thing in the world, your freaking phone, dude. And I don't know how many times that gets overlooked just from a social media standpoint. And then you get into the cars, it's like, okay, well, you know what? I watch guys like Vaughn Gittin Jr., Ryan Turk out there, and they got this full cage, everything, radiators in the back, and I got to be able to do that if I want to do this, and you're going through that right now with your build that everybody can see on your YouTube channel, Tirado Racing, with your Mustang, and you're showing people, hey, you know what? You can jump into this without drowning yourself. So, what has that process been like for you?
Yeah, so the first race car build, which was the Ultimate Street Car Challenger, watching the guys on TV, watching their builds, I fell to the same wormhole of I need the best of everything. And then I was like, wait a minute, I've never even done autocross. I should probably go out there and do it. But I fell into that rabbit hole, and I wanted to buy everything, right? And I got to a point where I did purchase. Eventually the car became badass, but it happened in a span of 5 years. So when it came to the Mustang, the Drift Mustang, I was like, I want to not delay me getting behind the wheel any longer than I have to. So people were like, you can buy a mini spool, you can buy a Detroit True Track rear diff, you can do so much. I was like, well, the diff, add a hydro, junkyard brake calipers, coilovers because the suspension was shot. I reused my old race seats. I gutted the interior because the car was soaked on the inside and the carpet was moldy. I think all in all, with some Hot Boy stuff like a front lip and wheels, I bought the car for $5,000 and I spent $3,000 on stuff that I didn't need but I just wanted, right?
Yeah.
So,
oh yeah, I know. You and I had those discussions. Yeah, it's one of those things where you always have to be conscious of what your budget is and go at your own pace. Now, I'm looking at it from the standpoint of, okay, here's what I have done in the past, but what I have done in the past isn't necessarily what's going to work for you. and there's that give and take with friends working on this stuff. But the main point of this is, unless you are a pro driver already in some motorsport and you're trying the next thing out, there is no need whatsoever to jump into a full-fledged FD spec, a full-fledged WRC rally spec, anything like that, until you get your feet wet and learn what you're doing. And that also goes for social media. Like we touched base on before, was grab your phone and just start filming. Donut Media, well, when James Pumphrey was part of Donut Media, he used to always say, just grab a camera, go and shoot some stuff and have some fun with your friends. And that's really what it all boils down to, because none of us are Francis Ford Coppola. We're not out there trying to film The Departed. You know what? We're out here just trying to catalog what we do. You said it best one day, is so maybe one day your son can look back on this stuff. You know, I want my kids to look back on this. I want maybe the struggles that I go through, maybe somebody's going to be able to see that and be like, oh, that tripped me up and it happened to him too. How did he fix it? So it's, again, comes back to the basis of just getting started. And while I posted my first YouTube video, I want to say 13 years ago, you have been doing YouTube like on another level from what I have been doing it for a while. So we kind of touched base on this the other day in just a regular phone conversation between you and I. But what was it that made you pick up that camera? Was there any kind of stresses that you went through feeling that you needed all that stuff? And what got you to where you are now with your understanding of it?
Bro, I'm so glad you asked that question. It was being so naive and what it took and saying, oh, I got a camera in my pocket. And not too long ago, we found the old iPhone that I started YouTube on, and it's an iPhone 7S. And all the footage from my first YouTube videos are still on it. And we looked back at all the bloopers, Ashley and I. Yeah, dude, it was hilarious. Not only that, Ashley and I were like, bro, look how skinny we look. Look how young we look. Zero microphone. And I edited everything on iMovie. Like, the only transition you get is, like, cross dissolve or, like, dip to black or something like that. And the same thing with, like, your lower thirds, right? Like, at Tirado Racing or, like, my name. All of that was an iMovie, dude. And then when you export the movie, you got to put your phone on Do Not Disturb, and you can't leave the screen because it was my actual phone. And I was like, man, I could do some real damage with this thing, right? But it was being naive. Like, I can just do it with an iPhone. And then I upgraded to an iPhone 10. And I stuck with that format for, dude, I want to say like the first 2 to 3 years of my YouTube. And some of those videos are the ones with 50,000 views, 60,000 views. And it was iPhone. So I think it was just, like, if I can approach a lot of things now that we're doing with that mentality of like being naive and just going for it, I feel like I'd be more successful. But yeah, I was just naive. There was no like, oh, you know, I'm just going to jump and do it. I was just like, oh, I got a camera. I got to work. And it was just, really, I always wanted to capture the journey from the beginning. And I really did with the Challenger. And that was the only camera I had. So that's why I used it.
Yeah, you know what? My very first videos were shot on a GoPro. Man, this might have even been before they started numbering them. And so I used that for a while. And then when I started filming some stuff for work, this was when I worked for Mattress Firm back in the day. We used to do videos in-house around the holidays that we would share amongst the other stores and departments and warehouses and see who could do the better video. So I started shooting on my iPhone then. And then when I started really filming stuff for YouTube, it was on my phone. And then I got a Panasonic G7 off of Amazon for a deal. It might have been a refurbish. And I used that. And that was used for the first, I want to say 15 or 20 RTR videos before I moved up to my Canon R8. And all of the stuff that has ever been shot on J-Dub Wrenching has been with my phone. And a lot of the stuff that gets shot for J-Dub Racing started with the phone and then transitioned now to the Osmo Pocket 3. I mean, I gotta tell you, dude, I have spent money on handheld gimbals giant handheld gimbals, the kind that hang off the back of trucks, suction cups. I don't know how many GoPros I've gone through. And it's like, when you're there in the moment and you're racing, or you got something going on, you don't have time to fumble around with a balance or anything like that. So something like your iPhone makes it so easy, because the stabilization that you have in these things now, the quality that you have of the video, even the audio in some cases, beats most things that you can do. So why worry about it?
It's, dude, 100%. And that's like my number one argument I tell people. Like, I'll see people buy the gimbals for your iPhone, and I'm like, yo, the stabilization in this is so good. Check out the grip right here. Like, it's your two middle fingers in the back, just like this. And this is literally how I vlog. Like, my arm is the gimbal, and I've always done that. And I know that it's so good because, dude, I spent my money on an iPhone gimbal. I did. And then I realized, like, I don't need it. Because I can do my B-roll with my hands, right? All the reels that I shoot that are not DJI Osmo Pocket, it's just my hand. Because the stabilization, the color, it's good. Like, you don't need to, again, overthink it, that you need I did this too, Sony a7S III with a good lens and tough cards and all that. It becomes an excuse to not go out there and film. Get creative with the camera you got and just go out there and do it.
100%. The thing too, and we've seen it just during the recording of this podcast right here. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to stumble. You're not going to come out and be a pro. So the only way that you're going to do this, whether it's filming content for your social media, whether it's racing, whether it's any skill in life, is repetition. Everybody that asks the guys in FD, what is the thing that I need to do to get into drifting? What is the number one thing? They always say a rear-wheel drive car, seat time is always number two. You need seat time, seat time, seat time. And it's the same thing with filming filming videos for YouTube, but filming and recording audio for your podcast. It's that repetition, and you learn it as you go, and you learn from other people. And that's what we have done here at Weekend Media. Like, I have learned so much from you, as well as Jose and Isaac, and I would hope that I gave some of my knowledge to you guys, and it's just how it works. And the same thing happens at the track. The same thing happens in life. You surround yourself with good people that you can learn from, and oh my God, you're going to take off. There is a little bit of skill, a little bit of talent that is required. I carry most of that for this team.
Currently, yeah.
But you know what? At the end of the day, you know what? It's repetition. You can find that. You can find that if you just keep trying. I know that there's been several things in life that have paralyzed me because I was afraid that I wasn't going to be good enough. You and I have talked about this before, and it's in some footage that's laying around somewhere, and I think it might have even been in the podcast that we did of yours when you were at Leaf Johnson, where we talked about myself going into professional wrestling. It was a dream of mine. I trained and I trained and I trained for this. I was in the gym 6-7 days a week doing this, and I auditioned. I spoke to WWE. I was in the lineup for Tough Enough. I made it to the final 75 before getting cut. It was the top 50 went to television. And they literally told me, you need to keep doing this. We loved what you did. You just didn't make it for this, but you need to keep going. And I had letters from, at the time, their development area, which was OVW. And you know what? To me, all I heard was that no from the casting, that I wasn't making it this season. And it just started breaking me down, and I thought I couldn't do it. And I felt like I wasn't where I needed to be, and it broke me down. And so when I got to the point of, okay, how can I transition this into motorsports, and how can I transition this now into my social media and my career? The one thing I keep telling myself is never say no, find a way to do it. And that comes from repetition and just trying it. So much of what I do on J-Dub Wrenching, on J-Dub Racing, with you guys here with Weekend Media, is me trying things out, not just for myself, but to see what works and how to make something transition so I can now shoot that stuff for RTR Vehicles, which is a larger company that is seen worldwide. All that is through practice, through using my channels. So, and I mean, I know with what you've done with not just Netflix, but also with your time at Leaf Johnson has helped you learn what you're doing now, man. Like it's a process, is it not?
Oh, it's 100% a process. I was like in the same situation as you. Left the military to go to University, Texas State, in order to get a commission as an officer because I wanted to fly Blackhawks and Chinooks. And because I got injured overseas, the U.S. Army, the DoD said, hey, long story short, you can't be an officer. We fought it with essentially the DoD because I was already a sergeant. I was already in the aviation unit and I was in ROTC. And it took a year and they said, no, you can't do this. And like you, I just focused on that no. That was plan A, B, C, D, E was continue my military career. And that's when I got into motorsports. And something changed, something broke in me where I said, I'm never going to accept no ever again. And part of that was picking up that iPhone and saying part of motorsports is marketing, and I'm going to start doing YouTube and Instagram and all that stuff. And I was horrible at it. And I just kept going. And again, being naive and saying, yeah, I got this. I got it in the bag. It's too easy. So moving forward from that, what was your question again?
Well, what was it like for you coming up against some of your hurdles, and what was it that you did to help motivate you to keep trying and learning and getting to where you are now?
Oh yeah, I think it just boils back down to that passion because I've always liked creating. That wasn't something new. I just wasn't creating because I was in the military, right? But when you start creating and watching videos like, did you ever watch RWB Philadelphia? It's a green RWB. The video was made by Crispy Media.
Oh, maybe I did see that.
Dude, the video was so cinematic, and I watched that when I was in South Korea, and I was like, man, that creativity, like how can I make a film like that? So, surrounded by cars. And it's always like when you see something like, we'll call it like FD Pro, and like, well, I'm here, how do I get there? So the same thing kind of like my filming and editing, like, well, I'm here, how do I bring it up to that cinematic movie level? And I'm always like kind of pursuing that. So, and it depends. A vlog, a cinematic sequence, like it's all different. It just depends what you're shooting for. But yeah, that's kind of what kind of kept me going. It's like, how do I get that good?
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is how do we represent our passion through what we do, through our medium. And, regardless of how Fast and Furious has become now, if you look back at the core of the Fast and the Furious, what made that so iconic and why so many people got behind it is there was a whole culture of us out there at that time that were building these cars in our garages out of these import cars that the generation before us thought nothing of. And we were represented now on film. I mean, there had been the Gone in 60 Seconds. There had been the Dukes of Hazzard, all the American muscle and the trucks and everything had always had a place in media. And never before had our culture been there. And for us, it was like, that is awesome. Granted, not everything was fully accurate. But at the time, it was cool because this was us, It was so awesome.
I'm 10 years younger than you. I remember the Fast and Furious. I do. I didn't get into it until about my sophomore year in high school because I was pirating movies off the internet, and it downloaded, and I was like, "This is a really good movie." And then I got the second one and the third one, and that's when my brother was really into cars like that. So for him, he was my older brother, right? He was into the imports, the RX-7s, all that stuff. So by the time I got to it, I was like, that's what my brother's doing in the middle of the night, going to Orlando and all these car meets and whatnot. I was like, I want in on this, right? And then you show up and it was nothing like that. There was no babes, there was no high heels, there was no skirts, but the cars were there.
So the Fast and the Furious was in 2001. Holy crap. I was just two years out of high school at that point in time.
Okay, dog, I was in fourth grade.
I got to tell you, so here's what's funny is for me, where I grew up, there wasn't a huge car scene, but my brother and I would say we're at the forefront of it with a group of friends of ours. And so that's why it was so kind of cool for us. We had those import cars. We had the Eclipses and the RX-7s and the Supras. It's funny, little side note is I had a buddy that had a 93 Supra. Big turbo. At the time, it was a lot of power. It was 900 horsepower is what he made it. But he's like, yeah, I got it for $30K. I'm like, $30,000 for a 93 car? Dude, you got screwed. Yeah, but now look at me. Anyways, yeah, so it was so cool. But then coming down here to Texas, especially the Houston area, there were many nights when I was working at the warehouse at Mattress Firm near, I'm not going to say where it was in case people are still racing out there and blow up their spot, but out behind this industrial area, every night people would come and line up and start practicing because Fridays, the security in the area would be a lookout for people and they would make sure that nobody went back there. There was a whole street they would prep. Dude, I'm telling you, there had to have been 300 people back there just
Jesus.
watching these races. And I mean, it was straight out of the Fast and Furious. And there was a couple times where the cops did come through and you would see that scatter. And it was insane. So I've experienced a little bit of that. But again, it all comes down to how you relate to that media and what drives you to do it. And a lot of us have to find that driving passion within us to try and figure out what's going to be our reason to keep going. For me, it was trying to show people that I could do it.
That one hit. that one hit because I still remember. So like when the U.S. Army said, "Hey, you can't be a pilot," I was like, "Okay, I'm just going to chase money and computer science. It's here in the Austin area. Programming and coding is blowing up," and I did 2 semesters of it. But I was already building that Dodge Challenger in the background. I was already doing that, and a friend saw me and said, like, he saw what I was doing on social media. He's like, there's a whole degree plan for that. And right then and there, I switched my degree plan. He took me to the School of Mass Comm at Texas State, and I changed my degree plan. The program for social media, marketing, all that was only 2 years old. I was like the third class to graduate from it, something like crazy. And when I told Ashley, my wife, Ashley, I said, yeah, I'm totally switching and I'm pursuing a job in media. Bro, she was like, that is a very complicated industry. There's a lot of competition. And it was what you just said. I was like, I got to prove that I can do it.
I remember many a night working in a garage in Northern Illinois when it's 32 degrees outside and you got your big jackets on. My brother and I are out there wrenching because there's a hot import nights in Chicago in a month. And just my grandpa would come out to the garage and he's like, I don't know why you guys are doing this. You're wasting your time, all your money. I had friends that were going out every night to the bar, spending $300-400, smoking, $100 a week, And to me, this is where my money went. I had girlfriends that would tell me, this is such a waste of time. I just don't get it. But to me, I knew that there was more to it. And I wanted to be able to make my love into something I could monetize. And then there's also this part of me that wants to prove people wrong because so to get real for a second, I was raised by my grandparents. Due to a series of events, my mother was unable to take care of my brother and I, and that's her story to tell, not mine. But I do remember one time my grandpa was upset about something. We had gotten into an argument, and he looked me dead in my eyes, and he told me, you are never going to be any better than your mother. And that just burned into my soul. And don't get me wrong, he was a great guy. He took my brother and I in when we were very, very young. Everybody has their down moments, but he was a fantastic person. He's been dead now for about 10 years. I have trouble now remembering what his face looked like, what he sounded like, but I remember that moment clear as if I was sitting there. And that became something where I became the Jordan Wheeler that people know, where I don't want to be wrong. And I'm going to show you that I can do something. When I didn't make it into the WWE, that was a low for me, a horrible low. And I went through a lot of stuff during that time because I felt like I was being, what he had said was now being shown that, he was right. And it took me a while to dig my way out of that. And Cars was it. And it was building that community and being a part of it and finding new people to be able to do what I do. And again, that comes with surrounding yourself with the right people. And much like you had Ashley, when it came time to pull the trigger to do RTR, I had Louisa. And I tell people all the time, there's two people that regardless of what I do or what type of skill set I have, there's two people that I owe what I am to today. One is Derek Bosman, who used to work for RTR that now works for Random Vandals Racing, who I met at my very first event. And ever since then, he kept saying, hey, we got this coming up. How about we bring in Jordan? He kept me in their mind. The other one is when it came time when Vaughn said to me, would you like to be a part of this team? I was making decent money at the time, and I had offers to make good money. And I was leaving what I was doing to, at the time, make commission. And that was it. There was no promise. It was just leave what you're doing and work for us and travel the country. And Louisa said to me, I have faith in you. But one thing that she told me was, I'm going to give you a year. You have 1 year to prove that you can do this. And if in that year it works, then we'll stick with it. If not, you need to leave it behind and we need to go back to what we know. And the only reason she said that is because she knew that would drive me. She knew that I would not want to prove anybody wrong. I wouldn't want to let her down. And that was my drive. And I've been with RTR now 7 years on the payroll, working with them off and on, 9 years, something like that. So, it's finding that passion and finding that part of you that wants to claw and bite and get your way up there. There was my old boss, Corey Justice, said, get scrappy. And at times I hated to hear that. But there's times where you do have to just forgo all the bullshit, whether it's saying, you know what, I got things I want to do, but it's 8:00 and I need to film a podcast with my buddy. Or, we got to get up at 3:00 in the morning to get to this race. Or if it's getting to the gym to make sure that you're staying consistent. If it's making sure that you're the first one in, the last one out at the job, whatever it is, whatever your passion is, it's trying to find that motivation to keep going. And that, for a lot of people, is the hardest part.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Gary Vee says all the time, like, if you can't find that within you, right, chances are you don't love it, you're just hooking up with it. And when he said that, I was like, ooh, because when I started that, I'm telling you, I was in love with it. And then one day I just fell out of love with it. And then Gary Vee did that interview. He's like, you didn't love it. You're just hooking up with it. I was like, damn, what a bitch. One thing I've never fallen out of love with is the sport of drifting, though, like we spoke about in the last episode. A lot of people think I'm new to this this realm. I'm like, yeah, I've been going to FD since like 2012, right? I'm just now like kind of openly talking about it. But to your point of get scrappy, I found this and I screenshotted it from Alex Ramosi. It was a thread. It said, if you have no money, you should have no shame. Knock, call, email, text, DM, ask. Life-changing doors don't open themselves. And I read that in a moment when I was thinking about some of the sponsorship stuff I have going on, where I have this issue of like just asking for free stuff. But then I forget, like, hey, I do bring value with the media that I do. I'm a good spokesperson, so on and so forth. And I said, why do I have shame? Like, I know what I'm bringing to the table. And I'm bringing not one language, but 2 languages, right? I know how to speak to people. And I read that. And then I fell into the algorithm of like motivational speeches and stuff. And this next one's pretty good too. Ships are safe at harbor, but that's not what they're built for. And it's like, ooh, I like that, right? Because I remember when I bought the Mustang and I made it nice and everything, I was babying it. I've been babying it. And then I told myself, the reason you bought a cheap car was to abuse it. So it's safe the way you're driving it, but that's not what you built it for, right? And then the last thing that you said, man, there's been words that have burned me. And one of them was somebody, it's like Voldemort. I'm not even going to give him that much credit, right? I'm not going to name him. And they simply just said something like, you can't do that. You can never do that. You can never amount to it. And it burned in me, right? And it's kind of the same thing. It's like, it sounds kind of messed up, like you said, being real. But it's like, oh, you're doubting me, right? It's like your ego gets angry, right? And it's like Tom Bilyeu, founder of Quest Nutrition Impact Theory, he says sometimes you have to lean into the ugly and bad to use it as motivation and energy to get to the good. He's like, and don't dwell there. You know, depression happens when you do that. He's like, sometimes you got to lean into it a little bit to give you that motivation to push through. And sometimes I do, but what gets me going is I love what I do. So as much as like there's parts of me and days of me where I'm like, oh, like I'm gonna piss on you, like you doubted me. Out of all the people in the world, like that was not the hand to play. Like you're not getting 21, you busted, you lost your hand at the table. A majority of the time, 98% of the time, it's like in happy, good spirits. And to your point of Luisa saying you got a year. In the first episode, we talked about how you said like, bro, you jumped, you took the leap, you're doing media full time. Ashley said like, yeah, 6 months, let's see where you're at. And I said, wow, guess what, bro? 6 months are up. Like it's December. It was that quick. And we both agreed on, hey, like in 6 months, let's see where we're at. And we'll just, take a quick look back and see what we've accomplished. Because behind every strong, successful man is a strong woman, right? Someone who helps us. And yeah, I mean, we look back and I've done a lot of and hit my goals. So yeah, the support system. And this is the first time, put this on the record, episode 3, that I have a support system of you, Isaac, Jose. This is the first time I have this support system. And I've been saying this for the last 7 years. I need a group of guys who have the same energy and tenacity and want to build the same thing together and are willing to sacrifice to do it. This is the first time. And it took how long? Hold up. I'll tell you how long it took right now. You're going to love this. My first YouTube video I published in January 10th of 2019. Did I say January? Yeah. It's 2019, 20, 21, 22, 23, 25 years. Okay, five years. So, yeah, it's been a good run. And I think it's just going to continue to get better. And the right people are going to come and it's going to be great.
Oh, for sure. And you know what? Here's the thing. It's all about the support system around yourself, believing in yourself when nobody else will. I wish I could remember who said this, but I heard it the other day. Somebody said, if you aren't willing to take a momentary sacrifice for the greater good, you're not in it for the right reasons. You're in it for the visuals. And that's what all this comes down to. Do you really want to help people, or do you want people to know you're a YouTuber or a fucking influencer? Do you really want to drift, or do you want people to look at you like you're a drifter?
So we just had this conversation today. This is great. I think Gary Vee says if you're only in love with the destination or the outcome, you're probably going to burn out because you have to love the journey. Bro, have you seen Benjamin Button?
Yeah, of course I have.
Dude, so I watched that movie in high school, and I remember thinking, because it's like his whole life.
Youngster.
Yeah, not youngster. And then, but bro, I remember thinking to myself, like, I want my life to be that full, where I'm traveling the world, I'm meeting people, we're having great conversations in the middle of the night, right? About life, our goals, whatever it could be. Just like flipping Benjamin Button, this fictional character, did, right? And I told Ashley today, I was like, dude, I look back at my 20s, right? Afghanistan, Kyrgyzstan, South Korea, just that portion of my life seems like a whole lifetime ago. But like now my automotive career has been amazing, right? And I'm like, dude, I live a full life. And last night 2 nights ago, I was in Dallas. I met this, I went to the gym late at night, again, paying my dues, just like you said. It's the end of the night. I don't want to work out, but I'm going to. And my key card froze up. Go downstairs. I tell the guy, and he's like, and that's my problem? And I'm like, fun. Yeah, funny, right? And he's like, what are you in town for? It's like the holidays. We start talking. And then he's like, what do you do? And I was like, man, it's a loaded question, but it's just the truth. I was like, I just doing YouTube right now full time. And he's like, interesting. And he started asking me how I got there. Bro, we ended up having like an hour and a half conversation until like 12:40 in the morning, right? And like all the lights are off, like the hotel, like the bar, everything's off. And it's just me and this random guy in a hotel lobby sharing our life stories. And then I'm asking him about his story. This dude's an actual Ethiopian. He moved to China for 2 years. He said, there is zero possibility of you making it if you don't speak the language. So I came to America. I'm like, how long have you been here? He's like, 2 years. And I'm like, wow. I'm like, in this guy's eyes, I made it. I have a house, a living wife, a child. I have a Chihuahua. I open up my garage to my house, and there's a Ford Mustang there. If this guy lived my life, he'd be like, "You made it. Like, why are you fighting for more?" Right? And it was like this perspective moment for me. This happened 2 nights ago. But yeah, great conversation.
You know, I tell my kids, well, as they were growing up, I would always tell them, you can't ever look at somebody else and compare yourself to them because you don't know what they're going through. You don't know their struggles. And there's a whole nother group of other people that are looking at you wanting your life. You know, through myself and Luisa's struggles and our fighting to be where we are right now and the hard work, we were able to put our kids into a good school area. I say we're not rich, but we live behind some rich people, which means when hurricanes hit, our power always stays on. But because of that, my kids were always around, you know, the children of doctors and lawyers and CEOs and stuff like that, and seeing what they did on holiday or what they got for Christmas. It's like, that doesn't matter. Right now, you go to a good school. You know, my daughter had the opportunity to go to Europe on a school trip, you know?
Oh, wait, like high school?
Yes. Yeah. So she was studying to be an EMT, which she was able to get her certificate before she graduated school. So she went out into the world with her EMT certificate. And what they did was they went to Europe and they bounced around to like 3 or 4 different countries there. And they were doing a historical tour, like a medical historical tour. So finding out where these things were first originated. So she got to go to Scotland, London. I think she went to Germany possibly. But yeah, so all these great opportunities. She drove a Mustang at one point in time. It's like, you realize how many people don't have a quarter of what you have. You have to be thankful for what you have and not worry about somebody else. Stay in your lane and know where you're going. You know, that's the biggest thing too, when you look at motorsports and you look at social media. So many people want to compare themselves to other people. And that's how you get in this analysis paralysis, is because you're sitting here, you're filming, and we post, let's say you and I go out, we do a whole day of filming, we spend the next few days editing, we post this video, and then it's like, awesome, we got 300 views in, 2 weeks. But then Adam LZ can go post a video where he got a GR Corolla and he has, 300K by the end of the afternoon. It's like, what the hell? But at the end of the day, you can't compare what you're doing to him. His journey has been different. His fan base is different. Like with you, with your drifting, it's easy to sit there and say, crap, I didn't link this entire course. There's people over there sliding door to door. Okay, awesome. You've done 2 events now. But guess what? You are controlling a slide right now with a vehicle that isn't nearly as set up as theirs are for somebody who hasn't done this before. Now, once you start linking your corner to your corner, awesome. All right, already, how much did you advance in one freaking day?
Oh, dude, yeah, you just said something there. Yeah, it's very true. My first drift event, I couldn't even get the car to drift. My second drift event, the same freaking car, I linked a couple turns, right? I went from I can't drift the car at all to my second drift event, I'm linking turns. Yeah, you're right. Comparison is the killer of all dreams, something like that.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, dude, I remember after your first event, you reached out to me and you were like, man, I wasn't linking this, I wasn't doing that. I remember just laughing, like, so? It's your first fucking event, dude.
Yeah, and it was funny. I had a lot of good people. Ashley, my number 1 fan, my number 1 cheerleader, my forever fan. I went out with Sean Coyne. We worked together, and he helps to run the San Antonio River City Drift. And he's like, yeah, I'll ride with you. And you got to be able to do a figure 8 before they let you on the big track, dude. I couldn't even do a donut. Like, I was like, what is wrong with me right now? Like, the nerves? Is it because, like, he drifts and he's with me? And then he was like, yeah, bro, just like give it the beans, dude. And I was like, all right, dude, whatever. Like, and he's like, if you want a clutch kick and that's easier for you, do that. I was like, yeah, like, forget this car, right? Just clutch kick it. And I did a donut. Then I went back, and Ashley's like, you want to go alone? You want me to go with you? I was like, man, just come with me. And first time with her in the car, I wasn't recording because I was like, I need to figure this out. Like, forget the YouTube video, bro. First attempt with Ashley, we knocked out a figure 8, and James, Dreamers of Drift, he's like, big track, you're good. And I was like, oh no, I'm not good. And it's in the video where I go, I think I'm going to practice my left hand and right hand donuts a little more. And Ashley calls me out. She's like, what do you mean? She's like, we know you can do a freaking donut. She's like, do a couple more figure eights and get out on the big track. Go out there. She's like, just leave right now. Go out there. And I went, damn, okay. And I was like, okay. And I just started going to the big track.
You know, my first big drift event that I went to, I stuffed the Mustang into a wall on a bank track. I had done several others with my RX-7 and things like that, but this was an event that I went to where there was a lot of people there. There was a competition that day, and I just know that I was so excited by how I was doing that I wasn't paying attention to my tire life. And I ended up going nose first at a wall, ripped the e-brake, transferred over, stuffed the back end into the wall on that bank. And here's the thing, looking back on it now, I had so many people that are like, well, dude, it happened. Get back out there. The worst has already happened. The other thing, too, is I don't even know how many drift events I was in at that point in time, but bank tracks are not freaking easy. And I was in a V6 Mustang out there.
Yeah.
It was an '05 V6 out there on a bank track. So, looking back, I was like, oh, okay. Well, I was doing a lot better than I thought. And the fact that I just stuffed it in there once, not that big of a deal. But yeah, the thing is, if you're afraid to fail, you will never truly succeed. Because how are you going to find out what's right if you don't know what's wrong first?
Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? He's like, too many people are scared to fail. Yeah, but failure is where growth is at. In life and in the gym. You have to fail in the gym in order to get bigger muscles. And life is the same way. That analogy always hits me. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm on the right track.
I know I would used to go to these events, and you're out there with a lot of people who have been doing it for a while, and you're afraid that you're going to look like a bitch in front of them. But here's the thing. They already know you're new because you haven't been there since the beginning. So that's already out of the way. And you're gonna have to fail. I think, and this is a story that's kind of a little bit backwards in terms of how this happens, but it was a realization for me. I was that dude. We discussed this, I think, in podcast number 1. I showed up to Rallycross in a brand new car, paper plates on it, a film crew, and I went out there to race. My very first event, I placed second. After that, I went 9 events, first place every single event. And you don't always come out the gate that way. I think it's a combination of skill and the tool that you're using. But I remember when I got beat for the first time, got a second place. And it wasn't that long ago, maybe 2 events ago. And I got down on myself. I was like, man, I screwed up. I should have known better. What the hell am I doing? But I finished second, And the fact that I had gone on this 8-9-0 run, I felt like I in my head somewhere, I was starting to think I was the shit. So I needed to lose that. I probably should have lost the entire event to really wake myself up. But I remember the person that beat me, her name was Cassandra. She goes to a lot of the Lone Star Rallycross events. Yeah, cool person. She was so excited that she won, and she stood there in front of me and she said, "This is the first event that I have ever won." And to see how excited that made her, I was like, fuck it, who gives a shit? We're all here having fun. It doesn't matter. I don't have big sponsors on the line, and even if I did, who gives a shit? This is what happens. You learn. And now I'm going to take that and go into the next event.
And not to mention, it's part of the journey, bro. Again, if you're not enjoying the journey, I want to tell you something. I don't think a lot of people know this. I've only won 1 race event ever.
Yeah, oh, yeah?
It's a Netflix one.
Wow. Well, I mean, that's kind of a good one to win,
The thing is, I hate how much they cut out. We need to save this for another episode. And I want a platform to give all the details out because I think my NDA's been up for a while. But yeah, there's this do or die situation that happened in my head where I was like, there's a portion in there where I was like, oh, I'm just gonna wreck into him. I was like, I don't give a fuck. You're not gonna win. you're not going to win. But the reason why was because it was the pandemic. I had no money. The only reason we were out there is because a bunch of people helped us get out there. And I was like, I'm not going to let all those people down. I was like, I hope you're ready to wreck that Camaro because I don't give a fuck. Like, I did not care. I was already ass out. And I was like, yeah, we're going to do this. And that's the only one I ever won. And even Ashley said, she's like, damn, you can't drive like that when you're at home. And I was like, it just, something clicked, man. I don't know what it was. And it was actually after that event, after the Netflix, that my driving got so good that I ran the BF Goodrich autocross program at Texas Motor Speedway for the next 2 consecutive years. Like, it was after that where my driving just elevated. But the whole journey, the whole story, right? The losing, the winning, the learning, the losing. For me, it was a consistent like 4 years of losing. But the gap was always getting smaller. It was always getting smaller. You know, I was always creeping up to the next position.
Yeah, it's one of those things too, and every bit of that helps you. And the thing that we're lucky enough to be in a position to is we have this support system of the four of us in Weekend Media that we can now share everything that we know with each other. And whether it's the losing or the winning, all of that is teaching one another something. And here's one thing that I will say. I have never won a drift competition. I'm not on the level of a Ben Hobson or a Ryan Turk or a Chris Forsberg, but I've been around the sport enough that I understand the basis of it. I understand the physics of it. I know what you need to do to win. So whether or not that I can put that into effect with myself, I'm able to take what I learned. I'm able to share that with you. I've been able to share that with Isaac to where I see that helps you guys. And if that helps you guys get to that next level to where you guys can start learning beyond whatever I was capable of and take it further, then I am happy that I'm able to help you guys and do this with y'all, because that's what it comes down to, is being able to help each other. Because if we wanted to do this for ourselves, I wouldn't be doing this podcast with you. I wouldn't be filming with you and the guys. You know, we wouldn't be hanging out at SEMA afterwards. It would be a lone wolf situation where I thought I was a shit and I'd be calling myself an influencer.
Yeah, no. I know, bro. I hate that. It was funny because I think some people perceive me that way. And I'm like, no, Netflix is just a thing that, like, again, we got to deep dive on that, dude. So many cool things happened. Because I always wanted to do a TV show. And, like, it's just something I've always wanted to do. So when it came across my lap, I was like, I'm not going to say no. Fuck yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I lied through my teeth to get on it, which is why, like, we gotta talk about
I will tell you this. I know a lot of people that have lied to get on shows, and you're not the first person that I know that lied to get on Netflix. So there's a few of those. And hey, you've been on Netflix. I haven't. I've been in the background of some television shows. That's the best that I've done. And I did a national commercial or whatever, but that was my passion.
Yeah, 100%, dude. But all that boils down to the wrong tool for the right job. If you would have told me, hey, you can't use an iPhone 7 to start your YouTube channel. You can't not use a microphone. You can't take a Dodge Challenger and turn it into an autocross road race car. It's just not going to work. All of those things were 100% the wrong tool. But guess what? Look where I ended up. On fucking Netflix.
The other thing, too, is when we start talking about the wrong tool, we talk about our cameras. We talk about the vehicles. The other thing, too, that I think you and I just deep dove into right now is the attitude. If you take the wrong attitude into this, that is the wrong tool, and that will ruin anything. Greater than the vehicle, greater than the camera is the attitude, because that's what people remember. And I really hope through people listening to this podcast, they can feel our enthusiasm, they can hear our excitement, they can feel our camaraderie that we all use when we do this. And when they see the visuals, whether it's with this when it goes on YouTube or with any of our videos, that they can feel that, because that is what transitions, and that's what people remember, and that's what makes people want to come back to a product. And at the end of the day, if you're in social media to try and further yourself in any type of career, if you're in motorsports to further yourself in any type of career, you You yourself are the product, and it's all about how you sell yourself. And are you the right tool for the job, or are you just a fucking tool?
Or you're just an influencer. So, man, I touched on that in my last YouTube video for SEMA. I think I titled it like "Why We Love SEMA 24." I think that's this last SEMA we did was probably one of my favorites. I think because I got to hang out with all of my friends, and the reason why I love it is because of the people and the friends. And what I said at the end was like, if you made it to the end, and you're watching this, and you want to do what I'm doing, there's a roadmap on YouTube of how I did everything because you can just see the progression. But I'm like, just be true to yourself, be nice, don't be a douche. Like it's simple stuff.
Don't fall in with the naysayers. One of the biggest problems that anybody can have if you're trying to do anything and you're transitioning it over social media is if you get stuck in those comments and letting people bring you down. Come on now. Trust me, you know how many people are sitting behind a keyboard right now typing and they don't know anything or have the experience that we have had? It doesn't matter. They just want to get seen. And here's the number one thing. Let them talk. Let them talk shit. Because guess what? That's a comment.
Some of the people that comment are just, I'm sorry, they're just dumb.
On subjects like this, I know you and I could keep going. But you know what? That leaves us plenty of opportunities for any of our future podcasts. We will be posting up our podcasts weekly. I have been Jordan Wheeler. This is my co-host, Brian Garcia Tirado. And this was the Weekend Media Podcast. Until the next one, see you.